short delay. All right, welcome back to Project Stargate Friends Research. I'm your host, Mark Brenner. Welcome back, everybody. And tonight on Project Stargate, we have the haunted history of Alcatraz. With me and Jake and Greg are going to bring on the spooky woo later on in this program, and we're going to talk about all the cool and spooky stuff that has gone on in the history of the island. I've always wanted to talk about Alcatraz. I'm really glad we're going to jump into that here in a little bit. But before that, I just want to catch up with you guys. Jake, what you been up to, man?
Working, man. Getting into what I do for work, it's getting into a really busy season in particular. That time with schools letting out and then getting ready to go back. So that's been just about it for me.
Cool, man. Well, I'm really glad. I'm really thankful that you were able to make it tonight, and I'm just really missed being with both of you guys. Greg, fill us in, buddy. What's cooking?
I'm just enjoying the summer up here in New England. It's finally getting warm again. Trying to get away from the cold New England winter time. It felt like it lasted forever, but it's finally, the sun's out now. The trees are in full bloom, and I'm enjoying every moment of it. That's pretty much about it.
You know what, Jake? Greg's got this cool Clark Kent like look. I could just see like Greg like standing up and ripping his shirt off and like
Superman.
having babes, and having all kinds of babes hanging off of him and everything. I could totally see that. Greg actually he's actually had some pretty cool girlfriends over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's quite the ladies' man, I have to admit. But with all that being said, look, I got something sad to talk about actually tonight. It's not great news, but it is what it is. I'm very, with sadness, I'm announcing that Vincent Moore, our science advisor and our co-host and friend, is because of personal and family reasons and career reasons, he had to step down from the project. He wanted me to let everybody know that he enjoyed being with us, and I told him that he has there's an open door for him to come back one day if he ever wants to, and even if it's just for one podcast or a segment or something, if there's something he's burning on his heart to talk about. But I just wanted to let everybody know about that, and he's going to be missed.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I enjoyed having him on the show, but if there's commitments you got to deal with, then that's a lot more important, in my honest opinion.
Exactly. He's a great guy, and whatever he does in the future, I know he's going to do really well. I think he's working on a degree right now, another degree. So, Vince, we're going to miss you, buddy. But like I said, you're always welcome to come back. It's been great having you aboard. But anyway, moving on. So before we get into our main conversation, I just wanted to throw a couple things out. For starters, I wanted to remind everybody, sometime towards the end of summer, we haven't set an exact date for it yet, but we will be convening for a UFO roundtable podcast with some of my fellow members of MUFON coming up, including my friend Ralph Howard. He's in the process of writing a book about some UFO cases he's looked into and investigated as a member of MUFON in the past, and he's also going to come on the program at one point, and after he finishes his book, and we're going to talk about that. I'm really excited about that. But we're going to have he's actually going to be moderating the conversation. He's a great moderator. He's a great researcher and investigator, and I'm very pleased to announce that for later towards the end of summer, beginning of fall, sometime in that time frame. That's going to be a really good, really interesting podcast.
Absolutely.
I agree.
But anyway, moving forward, Alcatraz. I've had a lifelong fascination with Alcatraz, and what I was thinking, if you guys want to this evening, we can start off and talk about. I want us, before we jump into the spooky woo, and we're going to bring on the spooky woo tonight. We're going to bring it full on. I want to talk about the general history of the island and and maybe if we could put all three of our heads together, let's see what we can come up with here. I know that originally Alcatraz was my understanding of Alcatraz is it started out as a prison for Confederate soldiers. And it was deplorable conditions. People were like, they had them in this little room that was underground where they stuffed like 100 prisoners in there, and they basically had room to stand up, and that was about it. It was very inhumane treatment. And then it eventually evolved. There was housing on the island where people would actually they had like the prison guards. They had their families living on there, and also, much to my surprise, one thing I learned recently about Alcatraz is that the island. There's a dispute on the island that where a Native American tribe's supposed to have ownership of it. Do either one of y'all or either one of y'all familiar with that situation?
I think I heard about that a long time ago when I actually did tour the island at one point. There was dispute, and there was actually Native Americans actually took control of that island for a little bit. It was like a protest group that hung out there for a bit.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard it got kind of ugly, actually. But at any rate, who all? Let's get back into the history for a minute. Where do you? I want to ask both of you this. Based on what you know, we had a lot of notable prisoners there. I think Machine Gun Kelly was there at one point. Al Capone was there. Who else? Am I missing? Who am I missing?
There was, I'm pulling this up actually right now. One name came to mind was Robert Stroud, also known as the Birdman of Alcatraz. There was a movie that came out about him sometime, I believe, in the 50s, portrayed by, hold on a minute here. Excuse me a minute. Burt Lancaster.
Oh, wow.
But the real Birdman of Alcatraz was not the guy in the movie. Definitely, he was far from it. He was a very violent criminal.
Wow.
And
what was he in prison for? Do you know?
Let's see here. In 1909, Stroud was convicted of manslaughter while serving his prison sentence at the U.S. Penitentiary, McNeil Island, Washington. He viciously attacked another inmate. This resulted in his transfer to the USP Leavenworth, Kansas. In 1916, he murdered a Leavenworth guard and was convicted of first-degree murder and received a death sentence. In 1920, due to his mother's plea for his life, President Woodrow Wilson commuted his death sentence to life imprisonment.
Wow.
And this died in 1963 while still in custody.
Wow. What I know that Alcatraz, one thing I've learned about Alcatraz is that it was designed to house like the 1%. The 1% of the worst of the worst of the worst. What else can you tell me about all that? And who else was there?
Let's see here.
Well, I think when you talk about Alcatraz, you definitely have to talk about Frank Morris and John and Clarice Anglin and Alan West, the supposed escapees from the Rock as well.
Absolutely, and I definitely want to get into that towards by the bottom of the hour. I definitely want to get into that. But anyway, continue, Greg.
Just named a few. Alvin Karpus, who's known as the first Public Enemy #1. Arthur Doc Barker. Alvin Karpus' name does sound familiar, but I'm not familiar with what his crimes were. Arthur Doc Barker I never heard of, but I'm just reading this I'm just going to tell you this is by the Federal Bureau of Prisons website. I can link this to you, or do you want me to?
Sure. If you want to screen share it real quick, just for our listeners and for our viewers, rather, that'd be cool too. If you want to share it.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Can you guys see anything now?
I see it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
There it is.
And what website are we looking at, Greg, just for reference purposes?
It's going to be the Federal Bureau of Prisons, BOP.gov.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just reading here. Most of the prisoners incarcerated there were not well-known gangsters, but prisoners who refused to conform to the rules and regulations at other federal institutions, who were considered violent and dangerous, or who were considered escape risks.
Wow. So that I know one thing about the prison really wasn't meant to be a huge prison. Like it was only designed to handle like up to like 300 people max or something like that.
Yeah, the average population for Alcatraz is only around 260 to 275. The prison never once reached its capacity of 336.
Wow. Dang. And my understanding also, guys, and maybe you guys can help me fill in the blanks with this, but my understanding is that there's been some escape attempts, and then there was like a riot where a bunch of people got killed. What do y'all know about that? Are y'all down on that?
So I'm familiar with the escape attempts that where 4 inmates ended up making paper mache dummies of themselves, leaving them in their beds, breaking out through the wall, crawling to the roof, and then ended up making a raft out of raincoats and glue that they had stolen from a supply shop, and then pumped it up using a modified accordion before taking off into the ocean. And after that, no one really knows what happened, if they made it out to San Francisco or not.
Rumor has it that the FBI investigated this, and I'm sure they did. And I heard that he was actually, that they made it to somewhere in South America. There's a rumor about, I don't think it's been confirmed, but if that's true, then the England party, as I call it, they would be the only ones that would have successfully escaped the island. All the other attempts were either failed or they died. The waters. My dad was in the Navy, and he was stationed in San Francisco. And when he was stationed there on nights, he'd have guard duty. He told me he had a direct view of the island. And he said the waters there were treacherous. There's lots of sharks. There's powerful currents that can just sweep you off to sea. I remember back in the late 80s, Unsolved Mysteries had a segment about the Englands. I just found that really interesting.
It's definitely interesting. And I like to think that they made it just because,
right.
Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah. Through all that and just to get off. And I mean, the chances of getting to shore is pretty slim because the waters out there are very rough. Trying to get to shore would be with just like a little raft that they just constructed,
Yeah, and I heard that they actually, when they were putting the raft together, I actually heard that and this is really smart. England apparently had a really high IQ. Like that's what I heard.
IQ of like 133 or something like that.
Yeah, it was in the 130s, and the way they planned this escape was just so brilliant. They, like, when they were building, for example, when they were building the raft, when they were assembling the raft, I should say, they used a pipe, a hot pipe to bind it together, and just stuff like that. I mean, it was brilliantly orchestrated. And then there's the dummy faces. It fooled guards. It fooled all the guards.
Right.
And they did all this from prison.
Yeah.
Right.
Dang. That just goes to show, man. I'm a big advocate for. I'm not trying to get political here, but I'm a big advocate for prison reform. Mm-hmm. I think that instead of just throwing them all in there, we need to have a rehabilitation program so we can nurture people like Mr. England, who have great intelligence, who's very smart and could possibly contribute to society in a positive way, instead of just throwing them on there for them to kill each other. But anyway,
Absolutely.
I'm off the beaten path. I mean, I've always been off the beaten path. But anyway, so there's quite an extensive history with the, starting out as a Confederate prison, and then under deplorable human conditions, and then it evolved into what it is today, which is a national park, from my understanding. Greg, you've been there.
Yes.
Can you would you mind telling us a little bit about your experience there and what your impressions were? And tell us also from your memory, if you don't mind, can you go into detail, a little bit of detail on the different sections of it, the floors, including the basement?
Well, this was back in 2008. Myself and my family went to San Francisco, and we went out to the island. And I think from the moment you get on the ferry and go all the way to the island itself, you can tell that for a lot of these prisoners, it's going to be very difficult to escape from. The water out there, as you said before, is very treacherous. And going out there from the shore to the island is very rough. And by the time you get into the prison itself, you feel like this is as secure as it's going to get. I'm sure the guards and the warden themselves believe that there's no way these prisoners are going to get out, period. Well, we have seen that one escape attempt, whether they survived it or not, we don't know. But from the very beginning, you're led into this part where the prisoner is supposed to strip down, and they're given their own uniform, and they're led to their cells.
And they search every nook and cranny on them too, I heard.
They do, for all kinds of contraband. And it's kind of a dehumanizing process because you're no longer a civilian. You're now a prisoner.
You don't really have rights. You didn't really have rights in that place.
No. You were referred to by the numbers you had on your shirt. That was it. So you were.
Sounds like the Borg on Star Trek. 7 of 9.
Yep. You lose your identity and everything, and everything is so secure that trying to get from one block to another, you have to go through gates. And I remember when I walked through one, there was actually some pock marks from a grenade that was tossed in during one of the riots where the prisoners had broken out. And I think it was the National Guard, I believe, that was trying to take back the prison. And I remember seeing the pock marks from the grenades that were tossed in through the windows. We also had these CD players, old school, and you're listening to the point of view from the guard as well as the prisoners that were there. And as you go through each room, you'll hear a guard say, "This is where the prisoners are going to shower, or this is where they do like activities like shop, where they're making things." And then you got the prisoners, they're talking about their lives and what's like being in the actual cell itself, how they get along with the other prisoners. A lot of fights break out. There's a lot like Al Capone not being well liked there himself, despite being the mob boss of Chicago. People there hate him.
Can I stop you there for 1 second, Greg, if you don't mind? Sorry to interrupt. Why do you think that they hated Al Capone so much? Do you have any insight on that?
I'm gonna make a wild guess, and it may not be real, but I have a feeling though that there's some people that were in there that were probably rival mobsters that probably had personal friends in their family get killed by Capone's gang, and they probably wanted to get back at him, obviously. And also the fact that Capone tried to act like he was the boss in there, and people weren't gonna take it. Like there was one story I heard about where he was gonna get his hair cut, and he cut in line, and this one guy actually pulled out a shiv and then threatened to cut his knife if he didn't get back in line. And of course, Capone went back in line. That's one story that I remember.
Wow.
But in prison, it's like doesn't really matter what you do on the street because once you're in there with every other prisoner, they don't care. So.
No, there's no it's really, back then it was like a dungeon almost,
Yeah.
but anyway, tell us a little bit about, if you will, from your memory, tell us a little bit about the notable parts of it that that they showed you on the tour. Was it something you could just walk around freely around the island, or did you have a tour guide where they guided you around, or how did that work?
It was all it was linear. So you get from point A to point B. There's no real free roam, unfortunately. I wish there was. But yeah, you're just led from one section to the next to the next. Every block will have its own little name, like Broadway, for example. So if someone wanted to go see such and such a cell, if a CO had to see such and such from a cell, they'll say, oh, he's on, I don't know, Rockefeller. They'll go to Rockefeller and they'll go to his cell. Oh, gee. Yeah. There was the solitary confinement section.
Tell us about that.
That is very ominous. And this is where the worst prisoners go. The ones that like constantly are fighting or the most violent, they'll go solitary. And it's dark. It's dingy looking. It reminds me of a dungeon. And I've seen some tourists actually go inside the cells, and I did not want to. It's like looking into a pit. It's just complete darkness.
Is solitary confinement, is that separate? That's not the basement part, right? That's even a worse part than solitary confinement, or is it the same thing? Are they one and the same?
That's solitary. It's separate from the rest of the other prisoners, because this is where they're trying to separate those folks from the rest of the prison population.
Wow. And later on, I heard there was that part of the prison houses what's considered to be one of the most haunted parts of the prison down there. And I want to get into that later with you, Greg, if you don't mind.
Sure.
At any rate, and so when you were down there in the dungeon, as I like to call it, because that's what it was. Let's just call let's just call a spade here. It was a dungeon, and I've seen pictures of it, and it's really creepy. Let me see if I can find something. Let me see if I can find a picture of what this looks like. Hang on just a minute. Let's see here. Bear with me just a minute. All right, I'm going to go ahead and screen share this for our viewers. For the listeners on Spotify and Amazon and other platforms, I'm going to be as descriptive as I can here. We got this right here. I want to see if you can recognize what this picture here, Greg. And get rid of this stupid thing. Uh-oh. There we go. What am I looking at here? What is this right here?
Let me zoom in for a minute here. Now, this was a long time ago. I'm just going to say that. That looks like a solitary confinement block. But
that's what I'm thinking. That's what I was about to say. I mean, you can just look at this. Even if it's not solitary confinement, I mean, what we're seeing here for those of you who are listening on audio formats, this looks like any kind of medieval dungeon that I've ever heard of. It's dingy, like he said. It looks really dirty. There's pipes hanging from the roof or from the ceiling, and then it has the dreaded cell 14D. And we're going to talk about 14D here a little bit later in the program. But at any rate, I just wanted to kind of give the people a look at what this place actually looks like. Other than that, now, let me ask you this, Greg. When you were there, what was one of your most interesting parts of the prison? Was it the solitary confinement where 14D was, or what would you say would be one of the most interesting parts of the tour you went on that you can recall?
I think the solitary was the most interesting because if I can show a picture.
Yes, please.
This is from like way back when. You'll see the correctional officers there. You see how open it is? Those prison cells are pretty open, so you can have conversations with our inmates. Usually they can like toss like leathers with like little lures or string attached to it, so they'll get it and they'll pass on to whoever. Whereas like what you showed me, it's you're cut off from the rest of everybody else. And I'm sure a lot of people probably went crazy being in those cells.
Yeah, I heard that. So one thing I did learn in my research last night or the night before, Greg, they were very strict. Like they were super strict. Like they weren't allowed to talk unless given they were only allowed to talk at certain times of the day. Like if they were out in the yard, if they were eating their lunch. But at the same time, I heard that they actually fed them really good. Like that prison was known for having like really good cafeteria style food.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
Prisoners were saying actually they were getting pretty good food in that prison, unlike any other prison at that time. They were treated pretty well. I remember like one part of the tour that they were fed with the amount of that they were constantly getting fed spaghetti, and they started the riot in the cafeteria. And then one of the guards had to like fire off a few shots from his Thompson just for them to stop.
Man alive, I would have. I remember during that riot, there were several people killed, and when we come, actually, I think this is a good place to stop and take a break. But when we come back in our next segment, I want to talk about that situation, the riot, and the people. Some prison guards lost their life, and some prisoners lost their life because I remember they sent a unit of Marines in there to try to contain the situation. And that's where they threw those grenades, like you mentioned earlier. But when we come back, let's talk about that, and let's talk about the spooky stuff. Let's get into that. Sound good?
Sounds
good.
All right. This is your host, Mark Brenner, and you're listening to Project Stargate Fringe Research, and this is the haunted history of Alcatraz, and we will be right back. All right, welcome back to Project Stargate Fringe Research. I'm your host, Mark Brenner, and we're back here with the haunted history of Alcatraz here with Jake Malcolm and Greg Shipp. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Good to be back.
All right. Before we went to break, we were still discussing and researching the history of the island, and there was actually, from what I learned, there was actually a riot that was orchestrated by Bernard Coy, Marvin Hubbard, and Joe Kretzer, if I'm saying that right. It's spelled Cretzer. And this information, for all of you listening, is courtesy of Wikipedia. They have a very interesting article you can look at on Wikipedia. But it looks like, from my understanding, that it was a situation where they are being searched for some kind of contraband, or they are being searched, I think, I don't know if they were their cells being searched, or if they were trying to gain access to another part of the facility. But one of them was being searched, and he overpowered the guard, and it went to crap from there. After when that happened, Greg, going back to what you learned previously on your tour, how long do you know how long that standoff lasted? In any details that you can recall off the top of your head of what actually happened?
Well, this was way back in 2008. I think that lasted more than a day because those three, along with a few other inmates, they managed to get 14 guards as hostages. Eventually, those hostages were freed by some of the other COs, and they started battling with the with the prisoners that started to take up higher ground. And that lasted until May 2nd. I'm pulling this up on history101.com. I can actually share it right now.
Please do.
Okay. Share. Kretzer made the dubious decision to fire on the guards, and many of them were mortally wounded. As the body count mounted, the anger and frustration built, and some have said that rage can still be felt today. A brave group of guards penetrated the cell house and managed to free the hostages while the prisoners retreated to higher positions. During the night of May 2nd, the battle now in its second day continued as the guards unleashed a barrage of small arms, machine gun, and mortar fire at the prisoners. They asked to surrender. Yeah, mortars.
Wow.
So this went from like a simple gun battle to, it seems like there was an actual battle between the guards and the prisoners.
That's what it's, so it seems.
Yeah, they asked to surrender, but Warren Johnson refused to accept it.
Wow. That's insane, man. That's a nightmare is what that is. That's just, wow. That's incredible. So there's a lot of, we've kind of talked to a degree about the general history of Alcatraz. Let's get into the spooky stuff. I'm ready for that. Now I want to start with this, and I want to know if you guys have any information to throw in on this, please do. I want to start with the infamous cell block 14D, the cell 14D. And I'm getting this. I'm going to read a very short paragraph from ArcadiaPublishing.com. There's an article about the haunted history of Alcatraz. It says, Cell 14D, paranormal seekers believe that the D block section of Alcatraz is the most haunted. It includes 14D, which served as the hole, or a place of punishment for particularly difficult prisoners. Visitors report that cell 14D is always freezing cold, even during the summer, and it elicits a feeling of sudden intensity. People also believe ghosts linger in cells 11, 12, and 13 of D block. So this is in I think the dungeon, what they're talking about. And so this is what I learned. There was a particularly nasty prisoner. Apparently, they put him in cell 14D. Now, when they put you in this cell, one thing I learned is they strip you down to your boxer underwear, and they hose you down. It's like torture, basically. And there's no bed. I don't think there's any beds. It's just a nasty floor and a hole you can use the bathroom in. But anyway, they threw this one particularly nasty prisoner in there, and after he was in there for about an hour, he started banging on the door saying, let me out, there's something in here with me, or something to that effect. And what this guy reported seeing to the guards was a pair of glowing red eyes. Have either one of you heard this story?
I have.
I have.
A while ago, I heard about that.
Jake, what do you know about it?
Well, just to the extent of what you've said, and that there are other prisoners that have supposedly seen the same thing in that cell. But that's about it.
This is just speculation. This is just speculation. But what type of, since multiple people have reported seeing that entity or whatever it is, I wonder what kind of entity it is. I wonder if it's a ghost, if it's a demon, if it's something or something else completely. You gotta wonder what that, because I've heard that it is definitely the most haunted part of the prison.
It could definitely be something to do with residual energy, I could say, and just the buildup of residual energy in there. Right. Whether it just be a manifestation of fears and how we see it, or, some type of demon, due to whatever evil men are in there, or it could just be a hallucination from being in complete darkness for a very long time. So I think it could be several things.
Right. I can piggyback on that, because you got to realize, though, this is a prison where very violent criminals live together for pretty much the rest of their life, maybe day in, day out. And there's a lot that they don't like. And eventually people get killed in fights all the time. There was a few guards that also got murdered there as well. So I think definitely agreeing with Jake, it could be residual energy to that respect.
It definitely could be. And a couple key points, 2 key points I want to add to this, if y'all don't mind. Number one thing I would do, I failed to mention earlier when we first started talking about Alcatraz, that the Native American tribe they used that island as like a garbage dump for people they didn't like. So let's say you offended someone in your tribe, or you committed a crime, or someone, they just don't like you. What they would do is take you to that island and dump you on the island. And legend has it that island was like cursed or evil or something. So, usually from my experience in research, usually when you have a place that is considered holy or cursed, usually there's anomalous phenomenon that happens in that area, like Skinwalker Ranch, for example. I want to use that as an example. This is something that was supposed to be a place that's very similar to that. So there's definitely that possibility there that there's this buildup of negative energy there, because of from the get-go, it was just like a very, very nasty place to be from my understanding. The second thing I want to mention that I think is worth mentioning, and this right here can help explain, I think, some of the paranormal phenomenon that people are experiencing. And we're going to get into more of that here in just a minute. But I believe that it being an island, a fairly small island, that's not a big island, but it's not really small either. It's surrounded by water. What do we know about water? Water conducts. Right? A lot of haunted locations have underground streams and whatnot underneath them. And that definitely may have a big impact on what's going on there.
It could be.
I think so, man. Definitely. But anyway, another legend I want to bring up, a ghostly legend and I find this really kind of comical in a way. Rumor has it that from time to time you can hear Al Capone's banjo jamming off. Jake, you're the musician here, bro.
Yep.
That's got to be really inspiring in some way to you.
I've definitely heard about that before. And my first thought is wanting to bring a guitar or something with me to an investigation and seeing if I could maybe, get a track recorded with Al Capone, the ghost of Al Capone, and
that'd be incredible, man.
I've definitely heard about that, and that was the first thought that came into my head. So music is something that I think everyone can relate to, no matter who you are or what you do, or even in the case of Al Capone, what a terrible person you are, and then your mental illness. Music kind of connects everyone. So I would say it would not be unheard of for there to be some type of residual, at least feeling of music, or thinking you might have heard something while in there.
If I was handling that in an investigation, and I'm not, I just want to go on record by disclaiming, I am not a professional field investigator of any kind. I've been out in the field a few times. One time I was with Greg, and we actually got some results that night, and we've talked about that before in the past. But at any rate, I'm not a skill. I don't have as much experience as you do, for example, Jake. But anyway, the way I would want to handle this an investigation to determine what type of haunting that scenario is. Sometimes, in parapsychology, we talk about things that tie in with time and space, like a kind of like a cosmic recording of information that may be able to repeat itself over and over and over. Now, the other thing, and this is something Mike, I don't know if you guys remember, but Mike Ricksecker, when he was with us, he brought this up, the idea of like a time warp type thing. There's that possibility. But if you were to, like Jake, for example, if you took your guitar out there, you got to play some jams one day. You got to play some jams for us on the show sometime. That'd be cool as crap, man.
We'll do. I'll get it set up. I'll get it set up so it can come through the laptop.
Heck, man. I mean, if you want to do it in our last segment tonight, if you feel like it, just let me know, man. We'll get you all set up real quick.
Don't think I'd have time to get everything all hooked up because I've got that on separate stations, but definitely the next one I got you.
I want to hear you jam out, bro. We're gonna go. I'm gonna go see your band play sometime. But anyway, let's say you went out there, okay, and you started jamming out, and you're in an area that has stuff like that, like Al Capone's banjo. Now, if you were to start playing your guitar and you got a reaction from it, that would tell me there's some kind of non-corporeal, disembodied spirit or intelligence at play here.
So there is actually a term for that, and it's called using a trigger object, and it's something that I do quite frequently. Specifically going to places like Alcatraz or a place around here, specifically like I think Kennesaw National Battlefield. Going to the battlefield, we brought with us some actual artifacts from the Civil War. It's kind of, it kind of ties together the two time periods, and the theory is that it gives stronger results in paranormal evidence. So it wouldn't be unheard of for, say, someone to go in there with a guitar or a banjo to start playing for them to actually get some sort of result or phenomenon, because it is said that it's almost like opening a portal or communication using an object that transcends like that.
Maybe in our last segment, maybe we can talk. Could you give us a couple of examples? Tell us a little bit about that where you were successful. You had some degree of success with that. Maybe if you want to, we can talk about that a little bit later on in the program.
Sure.
But anyway, Now let's say you went to the latrine where Al Capone was normally seen playing his banjo in the latrine, because he got the crap beat out of him and he was threatened, I think, from my understanding. So instead of going out in the yard, he just get his banjo and start picking away in the bathroom. I think there might have been another place he did it too, but that's one. Let's say you went out there, you started playing your guitar, but you didn't get any kind of response. Then that would tell me there's more of a parapsychological explanation for what's going on, as far as it being more of a residual energy or a recording.
Absolutely. I think at that case, it could be residual energy that could just be totally random at those times.
Definitely, man. Yeah. And I tell you what, man, that's why I love parapsychology. I love learning. I research it every day to a certain degree. We've had, going back to our interview with Lloyd Auerbach, he's one of the best, most brilliant parapsychologists in the world. No doubt about it, man. That was a great interview, man. That was awesome.
That was a good time.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of Lloyd Auerbach, for everyone listening, we're tossing around the idea of, I've been in talks with him and Dr. Barry Tapp, and we're thinking about maybe getting together sometime down the road, maybe doing like a parapsychology roundtable discussion panel. I think that'd be kind of cool to have two of the world's top parapsychologists on a roundtable podcast about parapsychology. That would be so awesome.
That would be.
Absolutely. That'd be a good time.
It'd be information overload for me. Like I'd be like, I mean, that would just be it for me, man. But anyway, I didn't mean to get off the beaten path. Now, because the island has a lot of Native American history, another thing I uncovered is there's that possibility again that there's multiple things at play here. And one of those things that I think that one of those things that's at play is definitely the Native American history, Native American ghosts. It even all into later on when the Native Americans temporarily took over the island after they closed the prison down. They've had EVP down in the dungeon of a woman saying, "Let me out" or something like that. So it was occupied after that, and they actually were living in those cells, which is I can't understand why someone would go down there in that place and do that. I mean, I would do it if I was investigating. I would spend the night down there, but that'd be it. But anyway, there's that possibility. You know, there's definitely a Native American it's actually a big part of this story, actually, because there's a lot of debate whether or not they own the island or the federal government owns the island. There's a big debate about that. I don't know enough about it to make an opinion, but that there's definitely the possibility that they might actually have rightful ownership of the island. So that's one thing. And also. The wardens. Let's talk about the wardens for a minute. Do y'all are y'all either one of y'all familiar with the wardens? Okay,
Unfortunately, not.
Let's get into that for a few minutes. So, again, I'm on arcadiapublishing.com, and I'm pulling this information directly from there for those of you who are watching or listening. Warden James Johnston, and I'm going to read this paragraph. The first warden of Alcatraz, James A. Johnson, reportedly heard and saw many strange sights and sounds during his time patrolling the prison, indicating that the ghosts that still linger in the blocks may be from its time as a military prison or even before. Johnson reportedly heard a woman sobbing while conducting a tour of the prison in its heyday. So that phenomenon of the woman sobbing, I wonder if it's one and the same or if it's a different spirit altogether. Who knows? I found that pretty interesting. Another one. I want to get into this. The ghost women of Alcatraz. Let's get into that for a minute. In 2014, a British couple on a tour of the island captured a photo of a ghostly woman for whom they dubbed the Ghost Woman of Alcatraz. The couple claims they had no intention of capturing photos of spirits during their trip and only noticed the woman, who appears to be staring knowingly directly into the camera's lenses after they snapped the shot. That right there screams ghost to me in the traditional sense. What do y'all think?
Absolutely. Do you have that picture that you can screen share?
Let me see if I can find it.
Sure.
Hold on just 1 minute.
While you're doing that, I just got to get my power cable so my computer doesn't die on me.
Go right ahead, brother.
I'll be right back.
Thanks for the warning. This woman of Alcatraz. Let's see what we got here. All right. Oh, here we go. Let's see if we can find the. Oh man. Oh yeah. All right, man. I hit it, man. I hit the jackpot on this.
Found it. Awesome.
This is some creepy stuff here, man. This is amazing. Let me first, Greg. I found a picture of the ghost woman of that. Greg is back. Thank God. I'm glad that the Men in Black didn't break in his home again, and he had to whack him upside the head with a pan like that one time. That was hysterical. To this day, that was one of the craziest anomalies we've ever had doing a podcast. That is just insane. But anyway, while here in just a minute when Greg's ready, I'm going to show this picture. I can't wait to show you guys this picture. It is creepy. Oh, holy crap! That is creepy. Wow. Okay, here we go. All right. Here we go. Y'all ready, fellas? Here we go. And here she is.
Yeesh. That is creepy.
I mean, it's as clear as a bell. It almost looks like a fully formed apparition. Can you see it well, Greg?
Yes.
What we're looking at here, for those of you who are listening only, this is a picture that these tourists, let's see, what was her name? it was a British couple. It was a couple from Britain, and they were taking pictures, and they said they had no intention of taking of like trying to catch ghosts or spirits or any kind of paranormal phenomenon on their camera. But what we're seeing here is we're looking in a mirror, and there what looks like a fully formed apparition of a woman with very dark hair. That is absolutely creepy. That is an amazing photograph. Wow.
When was that taken?
2014. Not terribly long ago, but not recent either. I find this fascinating. And by the way, this is courtesy of the HuffingtonPost.co.uk. If you want to find this article, it's pretty interesting. But at any rate, so that right there is kind of a pretty good overview of what the history of the island and also the paranormal phenomenon that happens. Do y'all have anything else that either one of you want to add as far as incidents that's happened on the island that you guys are aware of?
Unfortunately, I'm a bit lacking in knowledge in this subject, so I don't have anything. Greg?
I do not.
I think that right there has been. I've always wanted to talk about Alcatraz. This has really been a fascinating conversation. Let me pull up our my screen share. But anyway, let's. I think this is a good place to go to break. And when we come back, let's talk about modern paranormal investigating techniques utilized like people like you, Jake, and anything else we feel we want to talk about. We'll just flow with conversation. All right, you guys are listening to Project Stargate Fringe Research. This has we would just discuss the haunted history of Alcatraz Island, and we will be right back. All right, welcome back to Project Stargate. We just had before the break, we had a very riveting conversation about the haunted island of Alcatraz, and moving forward with this conversation, we're just gonna have a free form conversation, and I'm gonna let Jake kick it off with modern paranormal investigating techniques. Go.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things we were talking about right before we came back was trigger objects. Objects being something that can relate to both worlds, both time periods. Something that I've used a lot has been specifically you can get them in shops in Georgia all around, but Civil War musket balls. Taking those out, taking other things, playing maybe playing Dixie on a guitar or something like that in these Civil War battlefields and sites, trying to generate some type of reaction. And that's very common, anywhere you go to. Trigger objects are what I feel probably one of the most helpful in actually conjuring and contacting some type of entity of some sort.
Give us something. Give us something.
Yeah, so we were in Tunnel Hill, Georgia. Tunnel Hill being a Civil War site that is a tunnel in a hill. Luckily, we were there when nobody was there. So it was just the staff. We paid our entry fee, and they basically told us to go, explore the tunnel, walk through it. Very, very deep, long tunnel. And just thought out of the back of my head, we decided to start playing some music over our phone. I think we were playing, Look Away Dixieland or something like that, just trying to get some sort of reaction.
That's
and
so typical, man.
We did that. And then we played, sounds of, train horns, stuff like that, just kind of this not being typically a trigger object, but actually using sound and something to bridge the gap maybe, or open a portal. I'm finding it hard to explain what exactly it does because we don't know. But yeah, we got some evidence. We definitely felt some cold spots and heard footsteps for sure around us.
So you definitely got some sort of reaction.
We did.
And you're pretty certain of that.
We did get some sort of reaction, a very weak one, if that, but we did get some, a very mild reaction.
Wow, that's incredible. I've never actually tried that myself, but I've heard of it being pretty successful. That right there, what that right there tells me is in those situations, I think we're dealing with something that's not just residual in time. I think that what we're dealing with is something that's sentient, that is intelligent, or is intelligent enough per se to interact with someone through somehow transcending time and space.
Absolutely. Or it could be that having something familiar makes whatever it is more comfortable being able to present itself, or it does kind of break down some barrier, make worlds collide, or who knows what's going on. But I've definitely found it to help. We've done it on multiple investigations. And same thing, very light reactions. Mostly where we see it is with the EMF detector, which detects electromagnetic field energy. Basically, as you're doing that, when it spikes, an entity is close or around you or triggering it. So when we're doing that using a trigger object, we notice that the EMF is the main thing that's affected. We may not get as many EVPs, but we do get EMF spikes, and that's how we can pretty much say that there's something there. We may not be able to detect it audibly or visually, but there is something there.
Jake, I'm really, as a side note to this, that's really fascinating. I am very anxious to learn how to use my equipment. I've got these toys, and I don't know how to play.
Sure. It's real easy. A lot of it's as easy as turning it on and knowing how to read it. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to help with that.
I think I have a proposition.
Sure.
And here, my proposition is this, Greg. When you come down here later this year, I would like to go to Kennesaw Battlefield.
Kennesaw.
Yeah,
definitely. I actually used to volunteer there. I think it was 2014 to 2016. It's been a while, but that was the battlefield I actually to volunteer at. I used to give tours there as well. It's a really nice place to be, and I also heard some stories about being haunted. But in my personal experience, I never really experienced anything, but I think that if we were to experiment with trigger objects, we might be able to get something.
That I think so too, man. Let me ask you this. I know you've done a lot of reenactments. Did you ever do Civil War reenactment?
Slightly, a little bit. Usually around in the North Georgia area.
Okay, because I know I've seen you do a lot of different types of reenactment, and that's one of your hobbies. I'm wondering if we went to Kennesaw. Let's just say we go to Kennesaw. Let's say one of us dressed up in an outfit.
Mm.
What if we had a rifle, a musket, or whatever? What if we played some audio like Jake did? Would we get some reactions after doing research, of course, to find these hot spots? This is going to require some planning and some investigate and some research beforehand, quite a bit actually.
Yep.
That's something I think we should look into. We should start casually at least looking into for later this year. I think it'd be fun.
Absolutely. Out there, or we could go to Chickamauga Battlefield up in North Georgia is another big one as well.
The Rock of Chickamauga. When I was at Fort Benning in infantry school, there was a big mural of the Rock of Chickamauga. I remember that.
Gotcha.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, man.
Is that General Thomas?
That I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I don't know either, but I've always wanted to go to a Civil War battlefield. I've been to a couple of them. I think when I was a little, but I don't remember that. I was like 3-4 years old.
Right.
Sure.
Who remembers all that? It's funny. I can remember some weird stuff that happened when I was that little, but stuff like that I can't remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't make a hardcore impression at the time.
Right.
No, and that right there, actually, in a way, if you think about it, for me, it kind of leads me into even believing more that some of the things happened to me really happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because there's some things that I remember, and I'm questioning it to this day. Like certainly this couldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the whole thing and that really bad experience I had over in Ball Ground when I lived in Ball Ground. That was just absolutely it's mind-boggling as it is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, there's a lot. The other place I want to go to, we got Booger Hill over here. Have you told us about your? I know you've been out there. Did you ever tell what happened?
Yeah, we did a special on it. We did a podcast on it. But basically, the long and short of it is, we parked at the bottom and put some flour on our hood, and the car started rolling back up.
That's right. Yes.
Put it in park, came out. There was a handprint on the hood. Yep. And there is we did discuss that. So if anyone watching this wants to hear more about that in depth, I think that was 2 weeks ago or 3 episodes ago.
We'll have to figure it out and put it in the comment, in a comment or something. We'll have to, we'll figure out which episode it is, and we'll post a link in the comments below. By the way, please like and subscribe if you think we're worth it. Please like and subscribe, man. That'll help us out a lot. I'm trying to get more listeners so I can get more guests on here and provide better content. That's the goal right there. This is us. This is what we do. We're researchers first and foremost. We do go snap into talk show mode when we have a guest, but other than that, the core purpose of this podcast is research. That's what we do. That's what we live and breathe for. That's the whole purpose of Project Stargate Friends Research. But anyway, back to what we were talking about, Jake. The other place that I'm interested in, I think we talked a little bit about this also when we're in that same podcast. The Cumming Playhouse and that restaurant.
Mm-hmm. The Foster House. Yep.
The Foster House. Have you done both of those places or just the Foster House? I couldn't remember if you've done the Playhouse also.
So I never did an investigation at either one of them. I wasn't able to coordinate a time with them. But I've done interviews at both of them, and both of them, everyone was actually very open to talking about it, and they both claim to be very active.
I really think that I've casually mentioned this in the past, but I really want to go there.
Absolutely.
I really want to go there. I want to set up shop, and I want to see what we can discover. And I want to document.
Probably have to be after the summer because I know they're pretty booked up with events through the summer. So I don't know if they can make time for us. I just know that because I drive past the billboard all the time. So.
Well, maybe we can figure out something. Maybe in the fall or the late. Maybe sometime in the fall is my favorite part of the year to do anything. I love fall.
Yep.
I love fall is the most beautiful part of the year. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care.
Well, and it's not 110 degrees outside, so
Yeah, it's like a million degrees Fahrenheit here in Georgia. I mean, it's just nasty outside. But yeah, anyways, moving forward, that's definitely one couple places. I met Ursula in the Coming Play at the Playhouse. Also, I've heard some. I don't know much about it, but I've heard some stories that there some rumors that that place is haunted. I don't know much about it though. I don't know a whole lot about it. Have y'all heard anything
About the Playhouse?
Yeah.
I think we covered that in the Booger Hill episode as well. But yeah, basically, things shaking, footsteps being heard, people seeing, half apparitions, just all sorts of stuff. Silverware and glasses flying in the basement downstairs. That was all about 10 years ago when I went over there. Maybe a little less than that, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago when I went and talked to him about that. But yeah, that's classic poltergeist activity at the Playhouse.
You're a good journalist, dude.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I think you guys are just what this program needs, man. I'm really interested in going there. I think that at some point, Booger Hill, and I'll see all this. Where this takes me back to the place that we've been talking about for a while, and that's the Coal Mountain Triangle. The Coal Mountain Triangle of North Georgia is jam packed with locations like this. I mean, everywhere. The one location that Greg and I we went and checked it out one night. That place was haunted. We caught all kinds of anomalous stuff on camera. I want to try to recover those pictures. We need to see if we can recover them on one. I don't have them anymore because they were on my old hard drive. I want to see if you can find them, Greg.
Back in 2016, was it?
Yeah, because I remember emailing you a file, like a zip file or something, that had the ones I took, because we took like, between the two of us, I bet you we took about 600 pictures, I bet, between the two of us, 500 or 600. And out of those, we had, at least for my end, we had about 8 come back with anomalies in it, including green balls of light, faces, what looked like faces, and it was just too coincidental to be a coincidence. It's just it was a face, met with a beard, and it come to find out that did correlate with other reports of seeing an apparition in that cemetery of a heavyset man with a beard carrying like a book or a Bible or something. Mm-hmm. Remember, Greg, when we researched that cemetery? Remember that? We went to actually 2 of them that night. And one of them, I just didn't get much of a vibe from. It had maybe 1 or 2 reports of a ghost, but the Cumming Memorial Cemetery in Forsyth County, Georgia. Wow, that place is haunted. And It's Greg, you had something akin to like a poltergeist-like experience there. I remember because you was not staying far from me. Do you remember what happened?
Yeah, I remember it felt like someone had taken my shirt and just like pulled it, like lifted up just a small bit, and there was no wind at that point.
Oof.
Yeah, it just felt like someone just like took the bottom part of your shirt and went like this, and there's like no wind. I'm like, I just called you on my phone, like, yeah, can you come get me?
Yeah, I remember that. I'm sitting, I'm like, Mark to the rescue. I'm sitting there running over to him. I hit a tombstone on accident, and I felt bad, and yeah, but like that place was really interesting. I definitely felt a vibe there. It's really hard to describe. It's just like I don't know if it's whatever kind of energy that spirits use to manifest, or for maybe the energy that powers PK. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's something something we won't begin to understand.
Well,
it's funny Oh, go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, it was granted though we were in a cemetery late at night.
That's true, because but I tried to like I went through all those pictures. You know, when I was going through all those pictures, Greg, I really scrutinized them. I scrutinized the heck out of those pictures, and I had like 20 or 25 of them, is something like that. And then out of those, I eliminated, you know, another 12 or 13 of them, or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I try, you know, I don't believe everything I see or hear. You know, I'll listen to anything, but I'll believe anybody until I see proof that is false. That's the approach I've learned to take when dealing with paranormal phenomenon in general and experiencers, because even if it didn't really go down the way that they think it went down, they really believe. Most of these people are genuine, and they really do believe they've had these experiences, and for them, it's very real.
I agree.
Jake, you had Absolutely. Something.
Yeah, so I grew up in that town, and my family would frequently go to the Dairy Queen downtown right next to the cemetery.
It's the best one, man.
It is there, and several other areas that surrounded that cemetery. And I always, growing up, just kind of had this feeling that place was always haunted. And growing up, I just kind of assumed because it was the only cemetery that I really knew. But having gone to other ones, and you know, I talk about all these crazy paranormal experiences, but for every one haunted cemetery I go to, there's 10 or 20 that are just duds. No offense to those interred there, but you're not very exciting. You know, but you do get a different feeling from those, and that one has always given me kind of a weird feeling. Not a negative one, but an active one.
You know, I got a hypothetical question I want to add to that. Why would ghosts hang out in a cemetery?
That is a good question.
Greg, what do you think?
It's the last place I want to haunt. You know, if I was going to die today, I want to be at some place that I would like to have been. You know, if it's a house that I enjoyed living in, or if it was a place that I enjoyed frequenting, yes. Graveyard would be the last place I'd want to be. So I don't really know.
Dude, your Yankee accent came out big time. You said haunt. Haunt.
Haunt.
Haunt. Haunt.
Haunt.
Haunt.
I want to haunt this place.
Haunt. You sound like Curly from the Three Stooges, for real. But I mean, yeah. You know, based on, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I got thrown off on haunt.
But yeah, I think if for the heavyset dude, the priest or the preacher, like that's the place where he would have met his parishioners, and that's where he would have presided over the funerals. I think he's sort of like watching after the cemetery as well. That's what I see it.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. That if he was a preacher, it would make sense. Maybe he's just hanging out before he moves on to the other side, past the plateau, into that fifth or sixth dimension, whatever it is, or heaven, you know, whatever that is, you know, whatever kind of dimension that is. Before they go to heaven. I mean, who's to say that they don't hang out in the plateau and watching over their where maybe they buried a lot of people. Maybe this person had a loved one that died and they were buried there, and he frequently visited that grave. You know, there's all these possibilities.
Right.
I didn't even think. See, that was some useful insight. That's why we do this. I mean, I've learned so much from you guys. I mean, it's just amazing. But anyway, back to haunts. Sorry, man. I'm not gonna let that go yet. He said haunt.
Well, we had a conversation, and he asked how I was doing, and I said I made myself some coffee. He's like, "Stop right there. Say coffee."
Oh man. Oh, that just kills me. I love northern accents, but I just love that.
I live with my cousin who's from New Jersey. And
really?
And I'm from down here. And when we start drinking, Both of our accents get thick to a point where it's hard to even understand each other.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
What did you just say? What the hell did you
Well,
speaking cornbread.
well, we had Kathleen Martin on. She's got that New Hampshire accent.
She does.
People up here in New Hampshire, they're easy to understand. Once you get down to Massachusetts, good luck.
Yeah, Kathy has got a great. She's got a great accent.
Yeah.
Love Kathleen Martin. Anyway, that just threw me off, man. Like for real, man. I'm like ADHD big time right now. I just totally lost my track. But anyway, whatever. Back to haunts. You know, there's a lot of places in the Coal Mountain Triangle. They're notorious for being haunted. I mean, just all over the place. One thing I have noticed, you know, this goes back to our debut podcast about Coal Mountain Triangle. A lot of the UFO activity that I've noticed, that I've heard of, and I'm familiar with and experienced myself, was in and around Cumming and LJ. That's the big. I mean, there's UFO sightings all over the place, but I've noticed a lot of them are from there in Kennesaw and near Kennesaw, which I find that kind of interesting because even that's not in the Triangle area. It's a little ways outside of the Triangle areas, but that area is where there's Dobbins Air Reserve Base over there. I used to, when I was in the military, I used to go in and out of there from time to time. And there's been around from Cartersville on down south through Kennesaw is synonymous with UFO activity.
Yeah. Definitely really interesting. I can't recall having seen anything really crazy UFO wise, but I know definitely growing up, every once in a while you see something weird that you just can't explain in the sky. You know, something making a 90-degree turn when it shouldn't be, or whatever. But never really put much thought into it until recently.
You know, that brings me to something else. I want to throw this at you, and I've brought this up before. I'm sorry for being repetitive. What if the type of energy that the method of propulsion that these UAPs or UFOs use to operate, what if it's the same type of energy that powers the PK? What if it's a limitless 0 point energy of some kind that we just can't even fathom?
I don't believe I'm experienced enough to speak on that topic for sure. I couldn't begin to explain my theory, or if I even had one, on how it runs. So I'm just going to have to take your word on that one.
Well, you know what? When we do our roundtable podcast with Ralph Howard and the rest of the gang, and there's some brilliant minds in this is going to be on this panel. I mean, some of the best and brightest minds. I think that's going to be one bullet point I'm going to bring up, that I'm going to have Ralph bring up.
Absolutely.
And he's like I said, I think you guys are going to really enjoy working with him. He does such a great job moderating our meetings. Tomorrow night, I'm due to have a meeting with him with our Brufon group, and I'm really excited about that. I'm definitely going to discuss and come back with some firm time and date for this. I want to try to get that accomplished if I can tomorrow night, and try to get an idea of how many people are going to participate. So we'll as I get more information on that, I'll post something on our social media, and I'll also make an announcement here on a future program as to when that's going to be. But I'm just really stoked about that, man. For real.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be educational for sure.
Yeah, and also I think we ought to invite Johnny Two Bear and Angie Williamson on the show and have them back from the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade, and see and get us up to date on what they've been working on. If I'd love to have them back. Actually, we haven't even had Angie Williamson on yet. We've had Johnny. Johnny's been on, but not Angie.
No, I don't believe I've met either so far, so I'd be excited to.
So that's something else I'm going to cook up for us. And then I have a couple surprises, really big surprises, huge surprises as far as celebrity guest researchers. I got some cool stuff I'm cooking on that. Well, definitely.
Right on.
Awesome. But anyway, that's cool, man. I think that we just need to keep pounding away at this, and the more people like us that get out there, I hope that if I do nothing, I hope I at least inspire somebody. I hope that everybody you should. I think you should, to a certain extent, you should question everything. Don't take we don't even begin to understand reality. We really don't really understand what reality is. There's a lot of possibilities about reality. This could be a sort of dynamic matrix of a construct created by God. Maybe to him, that's kind of what it is. Maybe our creator did this construct that we call this made up of 3 dimensions. There's all these amazing possibilities, now I'm fascinated with this type of science. I love studying this type of physical science in general. And I think that having an understanding of some of that could also help us understand more what's going on in the world of the paranormal as a whole.
Absolutely.
But anyway, it's been awesome tonight, guys. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me, and we'll reconvene next week and have some new content for you guys. And if you enjoyed this video, please do us a favor and hit the like and subscribe, share it onto your social media. We really appreciate you being with us and researching with us. And I ask all of you to maintain an open mind, but still question things. Don't take everything for as it seems, because we don't know what reality is. We don't know if this is God. This is some sort of construct, and I think that there's a lot more to this reality that we exist in that we can possibly fathom. And as we progress forward here at Project Stargate Fringe Research, hopefully we'll get closer to answering some of these questions. Greg and Jake, thank you so much for being with us and being with me tonight, man. Love to have. Glad you guys are with me every time, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Yep, look forward to it.
This is Project Stargate Fringe Research. I'm your host, Mark Brenner, signing off. Have a good night.